for calling the cops after catching my sister-in-law secretly moving into my room? My name is Samantha. I am 33 years old, and I work as an interior designer at a large firm in Chicago. It is one of those companies that handles major commercial projects and very demanding clients. The pay is good and I genuinely love what I do. But this story is not about my job. It is about the biggest decision I ever made as an adult and how that one choice caused my family to completely implode. About a year and a half ago, I decided to buy a house. Not a beautiful magazine-ready house, not at all. I bought a fixer-upper that was practically falling apart. I found it in an online listing and the photos were dreadful. Peeling paint, a yard that looked like an overgrown jungle, and water stains on the walls. Everything screamed that this was a money pit, a huge problem, and something I was going to regret. But I saw something else. I saw potential and most importantly, I saw something I had always dreamed of having. I wanted a backyard. My entire adult life had been spent in apartments, surrounded by shared walls, condo association rules, noise, and a constant lack of space. I desperately wanted my own place. I wanted to be able to move a piece of furniture without getting approval. I wanted to have a garden. I wanted to open a door and feel that this was mine. The price was low precisely because of the condition of the house and the neighborhood. For the first time, I qualified for a mortgage that fit my budget perfectly. When I told my parents, they almost choked during our Sunday family dinner. "Samantha, what are you thinking?" my mom said with that tone she uses when she thinks I have completely lost my mind. "With what you are going to spend on repairs, you would be better off buying a brand new condo," my dad added, shaking his head. "That house is just going to consume all your time and money." Ryan, my younger brother, also chimed in. "Seriously, sis, condo would be so much easier. Something simple," he said. "That sounds like an absolute nightmare." And then there was Courtney, his wife, sitting there as always. Courtney barely said a word, but I could see her making faces. She made little expressions of disdain when I mentioned remodeling or gardening, as if everything I was excited about was ridiculous to her. Courtney has always been like that with me. She is judgmental, one of those people who acts like they know better than everyone else. The worst part is that she has never held a steady job. She spends her life on her phone, posting online, trying to become some kind of social media influencer, and always talking about big projects that never materialize. But that day I did not care. I was determined. I went through with the loan application, signed a mountain of paperwork, and suddenly I was a homeowner. The day they handed me the keys, I stood in the living room. It was a total disaster zone, but I felt an emotion so strong it almost brought me to tears. It was chaos, yes, but it was my chaos. It was all mine. The renovation took me 6 months. 6 intense, exhausting, and expensive months. I did a lot of the work myself because I enjoy getting my hands dirty. I did the painting, decorating, clearing out the yard, and picking out fixtures. But for the major stuff, I hired professionals. And this is an important detail. Because of my job, I frequently work with construction crews, foremen, and contractors who know me well. It was not a free ride, but they definitely gave me a good deal on labor. They charged me far less than their usual rates because we collaborate on big projects all the time. I saved tens of thousands of dollars because of that. I spent all my free time shuttling between hardware stores, paint shops, and lumber yards. My weekends were filled with tearing up old carpet, choosing color palettes, learning about plumbing out of necessity, battling leaks, carrying boxes, and sweeping up endless dust. There were moments when I asked myself what I was thinking. Like when the electrician told me the entire wiring of the house was outdated and unsafe, and had to be almost completely replaced. Or when right in the middle of a week of heavy spring rain, I discovered the roof had a major leak. I thought I was going to have a heart attack, but slowly everything started to come together. The walls came to life with fresh paint. The refinished floors looked beautiful. I replaced faucets, light fixtures, and doorknobs. The kitchen went from depressing to decent. And the yard stopped looking like a jungle and became a lovely space with new plants and a patio table where I could sit in peace. Every week it looked a little better, and I felt more and more proud. And then I decided to have a housewarming party. Nothing over the top, just something casual so people could see the finished result. I went over to my parents' house for dinner, and as usual, Ryan and Courtney were there. They rented a tiny apartment and spent nearly every weekend at my parents' place in Naperville, as if it were their second home. We finished eating and I shared my news. I am having a housewarming party on Saturday, I said. I want you all to come. The house is finally done. Courtney let out a laugh, but it was not a nice laugh. It was a mocking one, the kind that stings. I would never set foot in that dump, not in a million years, she said, still laughing as if she had just told the funniest joke in the world. I froze. I mean, who says something like that? Courtney, apparently. I renovated the entire thing, I told her, taking a deep breath to keep from exploding. But if you do not want to come, then do not. Instantly, her smile vanished. Her face turned red, her mouth tightened, and she did not speak another word to me for the rest of the evening. She just sat there, pouting like an angry child. My parents and Ryan looked uncomfortable, but they promised they would be there. Although, if I am being honest, it sounded more like an obligation than genuine excitement. On Saturday, the party started at 6. My coworkers, my friends, and even a few neighbors who had watched me toiling away on the house all those months arrived. Everyone walked in, looked around, and said some version of how beautiful it was. They asked me about the colors, the materials I used, and how I managed to transform the yard. They were so supportive and I finally felt truly happy. But my family had not shown up. An hour passed, then an hour and a half. I was starting to think they had bailed on me when I heard cars pulling up outside. I peeked out the window and saw my parents, Ryan and Courtney, getting out. They walked up with a look on their faces like they were waiting to see what kind of disaster they were walking into, as if they were expecting to find ruins. But the moment they stepped inside, their expressions changed. "Samantha," my mom said, her eyes wide as she looked around. "It turned out so beautiful." Honestly, I felt something inside me that I cannot quite explain. It was a mix of telling them I was right, a feeling of relief, and a small sense of victory. My dad walked slowly through the rooms, touching a wall and looking at the floor. Even he seemed impressed. He did not say it, but I could see it. Ryan was the same, looking at everything as if he could not believe it was the same house. And Courtney? Courtney was not admiring anything. She was inspecting for flaws. She crouched down to look at the corners of the baseboards, ran her finger along a shelf looking for dust, and stared at the paint as if trying to find a single imperfection. It was embarrassing to watch. Then she disappeared upstairs for a while. When she came back down, she raised her voice just enough for those nearby to hear. "The color of your master bedroom is horrible," she announced. "I would repaint it." I looked at her and smiled. "Do not worry, when you have your own house, you can paint the walls any color you want," I told her. "Even pink if that is what you like." The people standing near us went quiet for a second because everyone knew about Courtney's obsession with the color pink. She wanted everything pink. Her clothes, her nails, her phone case, her decor, absolutely everything. Courtney's face turned beet red. But this time it was with anger. "Let's go, Ryan," she snapped and marched straight toward the door. Ryan gave me an apologetic look but followed her out. My parents lingered for a few more seconds, looking deeply uncomfortable, and then they also left with that expression of secondhand embarrassment and disappointment that weighs you down, even when nothing is said. The party continued without them, and honestly it was better that way. Less tension and less negativity. After that disaster, I assumed my family would need some space, but my mom surprised me. A week later, she called and said in a low voice, "Can I come over to your house this weekend? Just you and me." I felt terrible about how things ended. I want to see it properly without any drama. I agreed. That Saturday she came over, and for the first time in a long time, we had a wonderful time together. She walked through the house without rushing, asking me why I chose a particular color, that lamp, or that piece of furniture. She congratulated me several times. We made coffee in my new kitchen, and she told me something I never expected to hear. "Your dad and I were wrong," she admitted. "You really knew what you were doing." Hearing that felt incredibly validating. As she was leaving, I did something I had been considering for a while. "Here," I said, placing an extra key in her hand. "This is just in case I go out of town or something, so you can come by to water my plants or make sure everything is okay." My mom hugged me, took the key, and said, "Thank you, sweetie." I truly believe this was a step toward getting back to normal. In the following months, my mom came over several times. Sometimes she would bring groceries and we would cook together. Other times she just stopped by to chat. It felt nice to have her close without any fighting. My dad was sort of in the middle. He did not reach out much, but he did not completely ignore me either. And Ryan and Courtney gave me almost nothing. Ryan would send a text every now and then, as if he wanted to keep the lines of communication open without actually talking about anything important. Courtney did not speak to me at all, and I could not have cared less. For months went by like that. I had settled into my routine, I loved my house, work was going well, and I was casually seeing someone. I felt like my life was finally falling into place, until my mom called me on a Thursday night. She had a strange, gentle voice, like she was carefully measuring every word. "Samantha, do you want to come for dinner on Saturday? It has been a while since we have all been together." Something in her tone set off an alarm in my head, but I said yes. I missed those family dinners and figured enough time had passed for everyone to behave like civilized adults. On Saturday, I arrived at my parents' house. Ryan and Courtney were already there as always. "Hey sis," Ryan said when I walked in. He was being overly friendly and smiling a little too much. That immediately put me on guard. Courtney barely glanced at me, but at least she was not shooting daggers at me with her eyes. We sat down to eat. My mom had made her classic beef stew. At first, the conversation was stilted. We stuck to safe, superficial questions about work, traffic, and the weather. No one wanted to touch on the real issues. I was in the middle of telling a story about a difficult client when my mom put down her fork and smiled at me with that same overly sweet voice. "Samantha, I wanted to talk to you about something." Everyone stopped eating. Ryan started smiling too, with the same grin he used to give me as a kid right before he asked to borrow something. My stomach dropped. "Ryan and Courtney's lease is ending soon," my mom began. "And with the way things are, with his job situation being so unstable, it is getting really hard for them to find something they can afford." I knew exactly where this was going. "So we were thinking," my mom continued, "that maybe they could stay with you for a little while, just until they get back on their feet. Something temporary." The silence in the room was heavy. Everyone was looking at me, and their expressions made it clear I was expected to say yes. I took a deep breath. "No," I said. "I do not want anyone living in my house." My mom's face fell. "Samantha, it is not just anyone. It is your brother and his wife." "I understand that," I told her, keeping my voice even. "But the answer is still no." Courtney shifted in her chair and finally spoke, her voice laced with venom. "I always knew you were incredibly selfish and arrogant." I looked her straight in the eye. "That is strange," I replied. "Because I remember you very clearly saying at my party that you would not set foot in my house because it was a dump." Courtney just shrugged as if it was no big deal. "Well, if it is free, I suppose I can put up with it." I felt a hot rage flush my face. Ryan jumped in with his own plea. "Sis, please understand. They are doing layoffs at my company, and they have already cut my salary. We are really struggling." I looked at him and then at Courtney. "Then maybe Courtney should get a job too," I said bluntly, "instead of just playing on her phone all day." Courtney was furious. "How dare you? I am just stating the obvious," I continued. "If money is that tight, then both adults in the household should be contributing." That is when Courtney broke down. She burst into dramatic sobs and stormed out of the dining room. I heard her footsteps stomping up the stairs. She went into my old bedroom, the one that used to be mine when I lived there. Ryan stood up abruptly. "See what you do," he scolded me, and then he ran out after her. "Seriously, Samantha, sometimes you are just so thoughtless." My parents just sat there, looking at me with that disappointed expression that can make you feel small even in your 30s. I finished my dinner as quickly as I could and left. After that night, there was complete silence. No one called me, no one texted me, and no one invited me to anything. It was as if I had been erased from the family. A month went by without a single word. Not an invitation from my mom for dinner, not a text from Ryan, nothing. And to be honest, it brought me a sense of peace. I did not want any more emotional blackmail or pressure to let them move into my house. I had my life. My house felt more like my own sanctuary than ever. I had friends over for dinner, worked on small projects, and arranged my furniture exactly how I wanted it. No one showed up uninvited to offer their unsolicited opinion, until one Tuesday when everything changed. That day, I had a 2 o'clock meeting with a potential new client for a big project. But around 11:30, she called to say she had a family emergency and needed to reschedule. No problem. I figured I would use the time to catch up on paperwork, but then I realized I had left some important documents at home. So I decided to head back and work from there for the rest of the day. I left the office before the afternoon traffic got heavy. I arrived home around noon, about 3 hours earlier than usual. When I turned onto my street, I saw 2 cars parked in front of my house. They were my parents' car and Ryan's car. My first thought was that something terrible had happened, but then I reasoned that if it were a real emergency, they would have called me. I unlocked the front door with my key and walked into a scene of chaos. My furniture was moved out of place, some of my belongings were piled in the hallway, and I could hear people working upstairs. I ran up the stairs and found them in my master bedroom, painting it pink. That is when I lost it. "What is going on here?" I screamed. "Who do you think you are?" Everyone jumped. One of the painters froze with his roller in mid-air. My parents looked guilty. Ryan looked like a deer in headlights. But Courtney just kept smiling. "Oh, good you are here," she said, as if she had rehearsed the line. "We decided to get the bedroom ready before we move in, so we can be comfortable." "Stop right now," I told the painters, staring them down. "Seriously, stop." They lowered their arms. I turned to my mom. "What is wrong with you? How did you even get in?" And my mom, with a smile that made me angry in a whole new way, told me, "With your key, honey. We are family, and we knew you would want Ryan and Courtney to be comfortable when they move in." "When they move in?" I repeated in disbelief. "I told you no. I was very clear." My dad crossed his arms. "We knew you would reconsider," he snapped. "You always end up doing the right thing." That was my breaking point. "The right thing would be for you to respect my decision," I told them. "You broke into my house without my permission. You are ruining my bedroom. You are all leaving right now." Courtney looked offended. "You are overreacting." "Courtney, I am not going to tell you again." It surprised me how firm my voice sounded. Then I looked at all of them. "You leave now, or I am calling the police." My parents started in with their usual speech about how family is supposed to support each other, how selfish I was, and how I could do this to my own brother. Ryan was yelling that I did not understand his situation. Courtney called me ungrateful. The painters smartly started quietly packing up their things. You could tell they wanted no part in this. As soon as they realized things were escalating, they put down their brushes, grabbed their buckets and left quickly. When it was just my parents, Ryan and Courtney left, I spoke slowly so there would be no misunderstanding. "You are leaving right now, or I am making a phone call and the police will come and remove you." They looked at me as if I was the crazy one, but something in my face or my voice must have convinced them I was not bluffing. One by one they filed out of my bedroom, went down the stairs and walked out the front door. I was left alone, shaking, staring at my wall. Half of it was still the warm gray I had so carefully chosen. The other half was that hideous bubblegum pink that I wanted to scrape off with my bare hands. I could not let this happen again. They had proven they had no respect for my boundaries. The first thing I did was call Mark, a trusted contractor who had helped me with several projects and lived nearby. "Mark, I need you to come and change all my locks right now," I told him. "It is an emergency." While I waited for him, I drove straight to the paint store and bought a can of the exact same shade of gray for my bedroom. I was not going to sleep with that pink on my wall for a single night. Mark arrived and changed everything. He replaced the front door lock, the back door lock, and he also rekeyed the garage door. Between the emergency service and the hardware, it cost me several $100s, but it was either that or live in constant anxiety. When he finished, he gave me a look that said he wondered what happened, but he was professional enough not to ask. "Call me if you need anything else," he said before he left. That afternoon and late into the night, I painted. I painted with anger and exhaustion, but I painted until every last trace of what they had done was gone. By the time I finished, it was around 2 in the morning. The bedroom looked normal again, but I was so shaken up that I could not sleep in there. I went to the guest room and fell into a restless sleep. The next day, I called a couple of guys to help me move the heavy furniture back into place. And then I did something that I should have done much sooner. I called a security company. I want cameras covering the entire exterior of the house, I told them, and a full alarm system with motion sensors on all the doors and windows. I paid extra for a rush installation so I would not have to wait weeks. They came the very next day and set up cameras pointing at the street, the front entrance, the backyard, and the sides of the house. They installed sensors on all the doors and windows. The alarm system was connected to an app on my phone, allowing me to monitor everything and receive instant alerts. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could finally breathe again. And I was proven right faster than I could have imagined. A couple of days later, I was at my desk at the office, reviewing some blueprints, when my phone started buzzing uncontrollably. Motion alert. Attempted entry at the main entrance. Alarm activated. My heart pounded in my chest. I opened the app and watched the live camera feed. There was Ryan standing right in front of my door. His face was tense, full of nervous energy. In his hand he was holding a key. I recognized it immediately. It was the copy I had given to my mom. My mom always kept it on her keychain, so it was not hard to guess where he got it. I watched as he tried to insert it into the new lock. It would not go in. He jiggled it, turned it, and grew increasingly frustrated. Then he stepped back, looked from side to side as if checking for neighbors, and walked to his car. He opened the trunk and pulled out a crowbar. I thought to myself that this could not be happening. It could not be that my own brother was doing this. Ryan wedged the crowbar into the door frame and began to pry. The piercing sound of the alarm filled the air, and the security lights started flashing. He suddenly stopped, looked terrified, threw the tool on the ground, and sprinted back to his car. He sped away as if his life depended on it. I sat there staring at my phone, a cold and paralyzing feeling spreading through me. I knew things were bad between us, but I never imagined Ryan would try to physically break into my house. This was no longer just family drama. This was a crime. I saved the video footage and drove straight to the local police station. I walked in and explained the situation as clearly as I could. I am here to file a report for attempted breaking and entering, and for property damage. I have video evidence. When the officer saw the video, they took me seriously. You could clearly see Ryan's face, the key, and the crowbar. It was undeniable. I provided them with the evidence, and they told me they would be in touch about the next steps. I went back home that day with a strange mix of emotions. I felt I had done the right thing, but it also hurt deeply. He was my brother, but he had crossed a line that should never be crossed. On Saturday night, my mom called, and she did not even let me say hello. "Samantha, what did you do?" she screamed into the phone. "The police called us. They said Ryan has to report to the station, and that there will be a warrant for his arrest if he does not go." I took a deep breath. "Yes, Mom," I told her. "Ryan tried to break into my house with a crowbar. I have it all on video." "You have to go and drop the charges," she begged, crying. "He is your brother." "Well, my brother should not have tried to break down my door," I answered as calmly as I could. My mom sobbed and pleaded. She said I was destroying the family, that I had no idea the trouble he would be in, and asked what people would think. I listened patiently, and when she finally calmed down a little, I told her the only thing I was willing to offer. "I will go," I said, "but only on one condition." "Anything, sweetie, anything," she said desperately. "You all leave me alone," I stated. "No more showing up at my house, and no more pressuring me to let them move in. No more fixing up my house behind my back. And I want my key back. You are to leave me completely in peace." "Yes," she agreed immediately. Yes, whatever you want. I will give it back. Just please go." I hung up. My phone immediately blew up with messages from my dad, missed calls from Ryan, and texts from Courtney. "Please, it was a mistake. It will not happen again. Seriously, sis. Help me. Just this one time." I let them stew in their panic all night. The next day, I went to the station and told the officer I did not wish to press charges. I did not want to deal with it anymore. I did not want any more contact, and I did not want to carry that burden. Ryan had to go in for questioning. He got a stern lecture and left with the scare of his life. And although it pained me, that scare was exactly what he needed because it worked. From that day on, nobody contacted me. Not my mom, not my dad, not Ryan, and not Courtney. Nothing. 6 months of absolute peace passed. 6 months in which I came home from work and my house was exactly as I had left it. 6 months in which I could go away for a weekend and not return with a knot of fear in my stomach, wondering if I would find newly painted walls or rearranged furniture. I was almost starting to forget the whole ordeal when I ran into my cousin, Emily, in the cereal aisle at the grocery store. "Samantha," she said with wide eyes and gave me a big hug. "I have not seen you in forever. How are you?" We chatted for a bit about life, work, the usual things, and then the topic of family came up. "Hey," Emily said, lowering her voice. "I heard that Ryan and Courtney are living with your parents now. My mom said that Courtney is pregnant." I froze for a second. "Pregnant?" I repeated. "Yeah," Emily said. "And apparently they are really struggling for money. Ryan's job situation is still up in the air, and now with a baby on the way, things are tough." So many things suddenly made sense. The desperation, the intense pressure, the audacity. Emily sighed. "I feel bad for them, but at least your parents are happy to be helping out." I just nodded without offering any details. I was not about to unload the whole saga on her right there in the checkout line, but on the drive home I thought about it all. Ryan and Courtney living with my parents. Courtney pregnant, and my parents shouldering the entire financial and emotional burden. I felt a tiny pang of guilt because I am human after all, but mostly I felt an overwhelming sense of relief that it was not my problem to solve. I had made the right decisions for myself. Buying that house, surviving the renovation, making it my own, setting boundaries, changing the locks, installing cameras, and defending my space when they tried to violate it were all the right things to do. My house is still beautiful. I am happy every time I walk through the door, and I feel proud when I look at what I accomplished. And if someone thinks that makes me selfish, I honestly do not care anymore. I worked for what is mine. I broke my back for that house and I have every right to protect it. My family made their choices. I made mine. It is not my job to fix their lives, or to let them take advantage of me just because we share the same blood. Sometimes you have to choose yourself, even if it hurts, even if they call you the bad guy, and even if it means losing relationships you thought would last forever. I chose to protect myself and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Comment. Setting boundaries with the people we love is one of the hardest things we ever have to do. We often feel guilty for putting our own needs first, especially when family is involved. But protecting your peace and your personal space is never an act of selfishness. It is a necessary step to honor your hard work and maintain your mental health. True family love should never require you to sacrifice your basic sense of safety. You have the absolute right to build a life that feels safe to come home to every single day. Sometimes creating distance from unhealthy dynamics is the only way to heal and grow. I hope today's video reminds you to value your own boundaries and stand firm in your truth. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I always love reading your insights and learning from your personal journeys. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.